Hey everybody, Sportegrity is back and we have a few big things to talk about this week. We had a historic day of upsets in college basketball, so we're going to talk about that history a little bit. We're going to talk about the demise of the super team in the NBA and my thoughts on that topic of conversation. And we're going to look at the MLB and hope that this week they will be able to act like adults and compromise and save what is already a dying sport. And that's what we got going on here today. So we're going to get right into it. My name is Chad O'Shea, and I'm ready to talk some sports. So let's dive in. If you know me somewhat well, you already know what this first story is going to be, and that's college basketball and a historic day of upsets this last Saturday around the country. The first through sixth ranked teams in the AP Top 25 all fell, all got upset in the same day on Saturday. That is incredible. It is just a real testament to the unpredictability of the college basketball season this year, where there are some dominant teams, but there aren't any teams that are running away as a very heavy favorite. And even in total, there were 7 top 10 teams that got upset. So outside of 1 through 6, you also had Texas Tech lose, and I believe they were ranked number 9. So it was really a very busy, very newsworthy Saturday in college basketball. And I really, I called it last week that there were so many upsets, so many great matchups that, would be on upset alert coming into this past weekend. And one of those big matchups, one of those big teams I talked about was Gonzaga facing San Francisco and St. Mary's this last week, how they were going to struggle. Well, they took on San Francisco. They struggled a little bit early on, but then they ran away, looked like their normal Gonzaga self. But then you look at Saturday. They ran into a buzzsaw with St. Mary's, who got the jump on them early. They played with confidence. They got Gonzaga out of their rhythm, and they never looked back. So, I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but, I did call that one a little bit. So if I were you, I'd start paying attention to what I'm saying. And, I know a thing or two about March Madness and how these brackets work. So definitely a great time of year to start paying attention. And, the needle hasn't really moved too much. The updated rankings in the top 10, a lot of these teams that got upset, either they stayed in the same position or dropped maybe 1 or 2 spots for the most part. The only big change would be Baylor hopped up to 4th place. But the reason I talk about all this is I'm not a big bold prediction guy. Bold prediction, I should say. But one thing that I'm pretty confident about this year is this is a year that we're finally going to see a 4 seed or lower make a big push, make it to that championship game, and maybe even win it all. The last few years, I got to check on my computer here, check my notes, but since 2014, there's been a 1 or 2 seed winning it all. In fact, I think since 2014, I think Villanova was the only one that was a 2 seed that won it all. 2014 was the last time that anyone else won it, and that was UConn as a 7th ranked team in the national tournament. So it really does not happen that often where you don't have a top team winning it all. But I think that's going to happen this year. I think all of these top teams, you look at the Gonzaga, Auburns, Arizona's, Purdue's, Kansas, Kentucky's, all of these teams, they seem very good. They seem very promising. They seem like big contenders, but they all have their own flaws, and they all can get caught on any given day. So I look at teams, just spitballing off the top of my head. You got Arkansas, St. Mary's, Houston, all these teams that are kind of going to be on that fringe of a 4 or 5 seed, as at least from what I'm looking at with the bracketology predictions, and a lot can change to where they might be a little bit higher as they finish the season. But I think a lot of these top seeds, they're not going to make it out of the conference tournament without another loss, and I'm ready for it all. So now's a good time to start listening to me. Every week I'm giving you some insider advice and some matchups to look at. So we're only a few weeks away. I'm excited for these conference tournaments to heat up in basketball, and I am excited for my favorite time of year, March Madness. Next up, we're going to talk about the NBA and one specific thing that I want to talk about, and that is the demise of the super team era in the NBA. Now, a lot of people will be like, there are still some super teams in the NBA, but look across the league. You got the Lakers. They have their big 3 of LeBron, Davis, and Westbrook. look how that's going this year. They're fighting to even be in the opening 7 through 10 play-in game. And they just got blown out by a Pelicans team that really should have no business competing with a team with that kind of talent. And, the Lakers, them specifically, have the second toughest schedule the rest of the season. So they are really going to be struggling and scratching and clawing their way to even get into the play-in. That's not to say that they're out of it. Whenever LeBron James is on your team, you're always in it. But that's a super team that's really collapsing because of their lack of depth. And that's what happens when you bring a bunch of superstars and pay your way to success. And then you look at the Nets side of things. Now, the Brooklyn Nets, they do have a big asterisk for me because, you had Durant, Harden, and Irving, and they rarely played games all three at the same time. I think it was only like 10 or 11 games or maybe even less than that since they all got together a couple of years ago. So that's another big factor too, where, that team already wasn't really a super team or living up to the hype there. And now with Harden being traded for Ben Simmons, kind of shaking up the landscape there, it's going to take a while for Simmons to adjust to that, and Durant to get fully healthy, and Kyrie Irving to be able to play home games. So, the playoffs are a little over a month away. They don't have much time to get that chemistry set up to become that super team that they should live up to. So just a couple examples with the Lakers and Nets, but just go ahead and look around the league. You got teams like the Suns, Warriors, Grizzlies, Heat, Bulls. You got the Bucks, the Cavs, Timberwolves, Mavs. All of these teams are in the place that they are in a shot to be a playoff team because of how they built their team, how they built through the draft, how they built through smart free agent signings, and smart trades for players that weren't just name value, weren't just superstars that they try to force in. They went out and got players that fit the type of team that they want to be. Look at DeMar DeRozan and how much he's changed the Bulls. Look at how, the fact that Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, and Anthony Edwards are all finally playing at the same time, and they're doing well. You look at the Suns, who have homegrown talent with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges, and they added in a veteran point guard, Chris Paul, a couple of years ago and made it to the finals. So I could go on and on, but this is the era of the process returning in the NBA, and it's really going to overpower those super teams. And I think a lot of these teams are really paying attention that you no longer can buy a title. This isn't the Boston Celtics. This isn't the Miami Heat. This isn't the, any of those other dynasties that were, bought or traded for. You're going to have to draft well. You're going to have to build a team. And all across the league, most teams have one or two young superstars where they can say, I can build a contender out of this core player. So I love the way the NBA is going. I love that there's more parity across the league. And I love this NBA season, and I can't wait for playoffs just to see how competitive it's going to be. And usually we don't see too many upsets in the NBA playoffs, but I think this year, like the trend of March Madness, we might see some shockers and we might see some teams come out of nowhere and upset a series or two in the NBA, and I'm all for that. But today there's only one big thing in sports that I'm looking forward to, you could say, with the MLB and everything going on with the lockout and the CBA agreements and all those things. It's just getting ridiculous at this point. Like what are we doing? This is a sport it was already dying. Baseball is dying. It's safe to say that it's competing with the NHL as kind of that fourth least popular sport, and I would say the NHL is even quickly passing them as that third more notable sport in the country. And so the baseball, they just cannot afford to be missing games. They can't afford to be having these disputes. And, you look at every day, there's reports that things are so close, yet so far away with what the owners want, with what the players want, with what the commissioner wants, and, all the different topics that they're split on, whether it's, minimum salaries, competitive balance, revenue sharing, geez, got the hiccups right now. And, the list goes on and on. There are so many issues that you got to compromise. Let's be adults here. Let's stop, saying you're fine with missing a month of games if you're the owner side of things. And let's stop with, the player side, just going to social media to rant and voice your opinion and troll and post memes and joke around on social media. Like, just figure it out. It's you're highly paid athletes, you're owners that are making billions, like the only losers out of this situation are the fans. Whether you're hardcore baseball fans or just sports fans in general. Like, I'm not the most hardcore baseball fan. I don't watch every single game. I don't pay attention to every single team. I hardly even watch most of the Twins games every year. But, it really is just to see like these types of disputes in sports, it just makes no sense to me. So let's figure it out, because of all the sports leagues, the MLB cannot afford to keep having this drama, keep drawing out this season, because fans are going to forget about you pretty quickly. So figure it out and keep baseball alive. But that's all I got today. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Sportegrity. One episode every week, so be right here this time next week, and we'll get you another episode either Monday or Tuesday, depending how the sports world goes and how my busy life goes with everything else I got going on. But I got you with one episode a week. So, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave some comments down below, click that like button. It really helps me out. And also follow me on Instagram, Sportegrity. I'll be posting little clips of these videos on that account, and being a little bit more active on that as I continue to grow this channel and continue to build what Sportegrity is and continue to get this thing out to the world. So thank you for your support. Thanks for watching, and that's all I got. So with all that being said, go on out and enjoy your sports.